So one common method is hierarchical clustering. So we first need to define a distance between data points, and then you can do it two ways. You can do it bottom up, where you merge cluster as you go up, or you can start with everything and split it down into smaller and smaller clusters. But regardless of which method you use, what you end up with is a dendrogram that represent each merge or division. So here is a super simple example with 6 samples where you end up with a dendrogram. Then you have to decide where in the dendrogram you split. So if we split here, we end up with 2 clusters with just one single sample in the cluster. But if we split here, we end up with 4 clusters. So once you have the dendrogram, you can decide on how many clusters you want and create the split. The tricky thing when you do hierarchical clustering is really defining distances between clusters or groups of samples. And that can be, it's called linkage criteria. So we can have single linkage, and then when you compare these 2 groups, you take the closest one, and that's the distance between these 2 groups. Or the opposite thing, complete linkage is the furthest distance. Average linkage is the average distance. And centroid is just the centroid of both groups, while ward is actually a bit more complicated, and there's 2 different implementations. But the main idea is that the squared error, when you merge 2 clusters, should not increase so much. So if you would have a 3rd cluster and the squared error when you merge it is smaller, that's a better merge, basically.